Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on receiving skills in the female game. The first one was through the lens of a central midfielder with Farrah Williams, and today we're going to be looking at through the lens of a wide player with myself, Kelsey Byrne, who's a national coach developer in the female game, and Chloe Kelly. We're excited to have Chloe with us to share her experiences. Just before we do introduce Chloe, we're just going to go through a little bit around what the webinar will be around and what you can expect to experience by watching. First of all, we're going to explore some key experiences that have been influential in skill development for Chloe and what did some of them experiences allow her to have and explore. We're then going to go on to analysing some clips, 4 clips in particular in detail, looking at the before, during and after phase of receiving. We're going to look at 4 clips that show 4 different types of receiving skills, 2 of which will be to outwit an opponent and take an opponent on 1v1. The other 2 will be looking to combine and cross and combine with others. So there'll be a variation of clips to unpick the before, during and after. And the third part is contextualising the receiving skills within the current demands of the game. Now, Chloe will also help us do that, but to give a little bit more context, we have got some data from the WSL which we'll explore and unpick prior to Chloe joining us. So just to introduce Chloe, really, she's going to really sort of help us unpick receiving skills from a wide forward, from a wide player's perspective. And we've got the pleasure of welcoming Chloe with us today. And I'm sure she'll help bring some of the clips to life. And I'm sure if anybody watching would agree that Chloe's recently lit up the WSL and been one of the most exciting homegrown players to watch. Chloe's represented a country at youth level from under 17s championships to under 20s World Cups. She's made a debut for the senior Lionesses in 2018. And alongside a flourishing international career, Chloe's also grown into an exciting WSL player, as we know. Starting a career at Arsenal before going on loan to Everton and eventually making a permanent deal in 2018. Similar to that first call up for the Lionesses. And then from making that permanent move to Everton, she caught the eye of Manchester City, in which she moved across in July 2020. So loads of experiences that Chloe can share with us. And just before we do introduce Chloe and bring her on screen, we just wanted to really unpick Chloe's in-possession qualities and in particular her receiving skills and have a look at some data which backs that up, and really just wanted to share this for you guys to think about the typical contributions and game contributions that wide players have, and really answer the question of what they're receiving to do. And I think that's a key difference with wide players is what are they receiving to actually do, what they're trying to contribute towards the game, in particular the attacking style of play. So as we can see here, I'm just going to introduce you to some stats that we've got here, which are on Chloe. And you can see on the left-hand side, there's the 1v1's attempts per game. And on the bottom of the axes, there's a successful 1v1 per game. So on the left is how much she's attempted to do 1v1s. And on the bottom is how successful Chloe's actually been. And as you can see there, you wanting to be in the top right-hand side of that graph. And the further you are up means the more you attempt it, and the further you are right would mean the more successful. And as you can see, Chloe's right in the mix of being one of the best in the WSL at doing that, as we know from watching her. And on the right-hand side, you can see a heat map. And I think it's really important to have a look at that heat map. And you can see there that there's marks all over the pitch, which is telling me that Chloe's really confident at getting across the pitch, playing at left or right. But I think you can see from there that she's quite comfortable in doing a 1v1, going inside the pitch or going outside the pitch, both of which have completely different skill sets and require different receiving decisions. And we require the player to be comfortable in different areas of the pitch, with different types of pressure, with different types of players and numbers and space around her. I'm guessing as well at some stage, due to her coming inside the pitch, the ball will have to shift from right to left or left to right. So being able to be comfortable on both feet is going to be important in this in particular. And as you can see there, it's just really good to see where the 1v1s take place and how we can contextualize that for our players in training, especially our wide players. When do we do 1v1s from the halfway line? How does that look really different? The time, the space, the pressure, where the line of pressure is coming from, compared to in and around the 18, compared to just sort of just entering the attacking third, compared to if a player was playing on the opposite side. So if they were an inverted winger where they'd be playing on the opposite side to their stronger foot, how would that look? How would that change the dynamics of receiving and what they're receiving to do? In particular, in terms of their 1v1 duels and battles. So as you can see then on the next slide, we've got now receiving 2, and then it's more a combination across a finish that's different to that 1v1 dribble. So as you can see here on the left-hand side, you've got key passes per game. And where we got this data and insight from is Opta, and Opta states that the data is a key pass is that leads directly to a shot that's not scored. So basically, very similar to assist is obviously a pass that's scored. A key pass is a pass that allows a player to get a shot on target but doesn't actually go in. As you can see there, there's also assists per game. So again, you'd want to be in that top right-hand quartile, if you like, with as many key passes per game as you can and as many assists per game as you can. And as you can see there, there's Chloe surrounded by another quite a few famous names across the WSL, but again, Chloe's right in the mix of that, and as you can see there, is out in front in regards to assists and key passes. And if you look there on the right hand side, you can then see where the assists and goals come from. Now, these are from open play in particular, not from set plays. So Chloe has scored a couple from set plays that have been taken out, but you can see again there where they occur, how important it is that, and how the receiving skills or how the skills of being in and around them areas for wide players are very different than what they would be in and around the wide areas of the heat map that you've seen with the 1v1 in particular. So you can see that, you know, where might key passes come from to get those assists and goals. Where are the assists coming from? Where are the key passes that come prior to that assist coming from? These are all things we've explored before, but something to take into consideration in regards to your own team and players. It's also interesting to think about how the receiving skill might differ from the previous set of data in regards to receiving to dribble. How might that look different? You can see here that some of those key passes and assists have come from really far inside the pitch, in lanes 2 and 3. You can see there with goals and key passes. So it's interesting there to think, has a dribble come prior to that as you received in there? What are the different combinations of ways that she could get into those areas, and ways to explore what the pressure might look like, the space, the time she has might look like, and how do we explore that with our players? Chloe, thanks for joining us today. Thanks for being willing to share your insights and experiences. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I'm really looking forward to this. And
well, thanks very much for sharing. I think a lot of people have been watching you from afar or up close for a long period of time, so I think it'd be nice for them to unpick some of your thoughts and try and transfer them onto their own players, I think. So, yeah, thanks very much. Just want to start on this bit really, Chloe, just on your developmental journey and experiences, because I think yours has been quite different to most people's, really. And you come from a large family. You've got older brothers, 5 older brothers from what I know. I'm sure that they didn't really want to make it an easy experience for you growing up to have the ball and to be able to play against them. I'm sure they were adamant of taking the ball off you. So is that where your love for keeping the ball, getting on the ball, and being able to really love the connection of the ball came from, is just trying to outwit your brothers?
Yeah, definitely. I think growing up with the boys and playing with older people than me, it was always a case of having to hold my own and not really getting bullied off the ball, and just try and show what I'm capable of in them tight areas, because I did play in the cages where it is quite tight. It was like the numbers just based on how many people were there. It weren't like any set rules really. But I think just having the ball at my feet and shown what I was capable of. Yeah, I might have been knocked down a few times, but I'd get back up and try again, and that was really my mentality, because if I didn't hold my own, then I wouldn't be able to be playing with them. So I weren't in a team or anything like that. So that's where I learnt my trade really until till I did go to QPR, and then that's when I did get some coaching, but I'd still go back to where I learnt just to love the game in the cages, because that's where I got everything that I learned up until then. So I weren't going to take that away from my game, because I just wanted to enjoy it. And yeah, going back there and playing, even after games, I think I'd go back to the cage and still be playing there. Just never really got tired, but it was just a case of holding your own against the older boys.
Yeah, good. And I know this webinar in particular is around receiving skills, and I know you've said you've learnt your craft and your trade in the cages. So what did the cages in particularly give you or support you with that really helped that tight receiving skills, or being able to manipulate the ball and receive under different types of pressure under different areas and surfaces and things like that? How did that support you?
I think just playing in tight areas and knowing what's around you before getting the ball, and just playing off with creativity, really just playing in the moment and being creative, and that, like, love a skill and things like that. So just being able to play with freedom and creativity, and just knowing the game before you get the ball, knowing what's next, because it is quite tight in them situations, and not trying to do something spectacular. It's just keep the ball, and then when you do get the opportunity, because if you are playing off 1-2 touch, then when you do get the opportunity, they're not expecting you to drive at them, and they're probably sat off you a little bit more because they're not expecting that.
Mm-hmm. Does it really support you working off both feet? Because I know, obviously, watching your clips and seeing some of your stats and data, that it's quite clear you can work off both feet and come inside and outside. So did that also support the development of the both feet, or is that something you've worked on throughout your career?
Yeah, definitely. I think when I was younger, I just trying to play off both, and I remember I remember it. I scored a goal in the cages, and I was like, "Oh, that was with my weaker foot." And I remember my brother's friend saying, "You don't have a weaker foot. Like, that's not the way you look at it." So that really was like a thing in my head. Like, oh, okay, like, it's not a weaker foot. It's just my left. So, yeah, definitely just not even thinking about what foot it is. It's just a shot on goal.
Yeah, just playing.
Yeah.
And I suppose in terms of the surface, like the gravel or the concrete, like how did that support your receiving skills? Because I'm guessing it bobbled and take touches, and there's probably all sorts of obstacles and stuff in the way that's completely different to a nice level grass surface that you've got now. So how did that support you?
Yeah, definitely. It was just like a gravel pitch, and it had a bump in the middle, like, so that if it went through the middle, like, it could bobble anywhere. But yeah, it was just a case of playing in the moment, and you're not knowing what you're going to expect. Like, the past might not be perfect, but it's what you make of that, and just expecting a bobble sometimes, because it isn't obviously perfect.
Yeah, and we can see from, obviously, watching you over this season and previous seasons, that you can receive the ball to feet, but you're also quick enough to receive and go beyond. So in the cages, there's not much space beyond, is there? It's quite tight, and it's all quite intricate. So when did you start to think about receiving beyond the back line and receiving beyond fullbacks and beyond defenders and opposition? When did that start to become a thing for you?
It's still something I need to add into my game a lot more, and just doing the double movements, because I do like to come feet quite a lot. So sometimes when I am coming feet, it's just building relationships to know that they do need me in behind sometimes. So it's something I'm still trying to add to my game, but just the double movements, then pull the fullback in with me to then go in behind, or I might not be the one receiving, but if I'm pulling them in with me, showing feet, then it might create the space for another runner in behind. So I feel like just the movement before it is the main thing.
Yeah, and I think this question probably links to that a little bit. But now people know who you are, probably more so now you're at Man City than at any other point. How do you stay unpredictable, especially in receiving, that players will watch you, players will come up against you a couple of times a season, they'll watch clips on you, highlights on you. How do you stay unpredictable and just almost get the feel of the game in the moment?
I think just being able to play obviously off both feet and not being predictable, that I always do go down the side. I can cut in as well. So just being able to switch it up sometimes, and I think just being able to work with a fullback to know what that fullback is about, and then adding my game into that to where I can beat them, and just the analysis on that sometimes is the main thing, because sometimes in games like you do get the fullback really tight on you, and that might not be for me to receive, but it could be for someone else. So if they do get sucked in quite tight, do I then run off them, or is it the run for someone else?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, perfect. And I think you just being unpredictable, I think, is a key one. And we'll see in the clips that are on that, if people show you outside, you can go inside, and if people show you inside, you go outside. So, I think you've got a lot of skill sets really that make it really difficult. And I suppose just drawing on from that, just before we go into the video clips and start to unpick it in a little bit more detail, but in terms of receiving and being able to show off your in-possession qualities, which are obviously one of your huge assets, can you remember any key nuggets of information or any key things that have been told to you by coaches or by peers that have really stuck with you and you thought, gosh, yeah, I not thought about that before, or that's really enhanced my game or made me think differently about what I do?
I think just scanning beforehand, and knowing what next, and reading the pictures. So if I don't scan, then sometimes I do get it in through the back of me. But just scanning and knowing what next before I do receive it, and also just playing in the moment. Pictures do change, so being able to not make my mind up already, and knowing that pictures will change when I do receive it. So a case of being proactive with that. Yeah.
So when do you look to scan then, Chloe? What are you looking for, and when do you do it?
I think it's my timing of the when the centre half say is stepping out of it and I am going to receive in the pocket, just the timing of that, and then scanning to see if my fullback is coming with me. It's something I still need to improve on, but it's definitely something that Gaz is trying to implement with me since I have been at City. And I think it's just gentle reminders that help that, and scanning before I do receive it as it's coming into me, and just taking as many checks as you can.
Yeah, and when you're checking, what do you look for in particular? Is that something where you're thinking, right, I'm looking for a space that you can exploit? Is that your first option? Are you looking for players, opposition players, your players, a mixture of all of them?
I'd say a mixture of all of them. If the fullback is getting tight to me, but also R9 as well, and the 10, to see what their movement is off of me, and if I can play it around the corner to the 10, or do I need to get my body there and draw a foul, or set back to my fullback or centre half, or just need to stay on it if the angle isn't there. So just reading what everyone around me is doing, because pitches do change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and probably based on the pitches then, how much do you do just in the moment, and you just do what comes naturally to you in that moment based on what you see, and how much is sort of pre-planned, where you sort of know some characteristics of the fullback, you sort of know what the opposition team are likely to do and the spaces they're likely to give you? How much is that a balance of the two, or is it more one than the other?
I'd say more pictures, but obviously a player could change them what they're doing when they come up against you. So not too much of what you see beforehand, but more the pictures of what they're giving you, and if they are giving you something that you haven't seen in the clips beforehand, then use it to your advantage, because if they're giving it you, then take it.
Mm-hmm. And would you say that comes back to your days of the cage then, just being able to do it in the moment and facing different types of opposition, and probably larger boys to skinnier boys to older boys to younger boys? Is that all sort of helped you?
Yeah, definitely. I think looking back, like I'm really grateful to have that because it's something that not many have probably experienced. So being able to do that, and it was probably a lot of pressure because they were older and probably a lot stronger, and that there was me, just the skinny little girl. But I like to hold in your own and just playing what you do see is really important.
Yeah, and we're gonna start to unpick some of these now, and hopefully unpick some of your insights, Chloe, into what you're thinking when you're receiving and what you're doing in certain different contexts of the game, really. So the first video that we're gonna have a look at, the first two that we're gonna have a look at, really around dribbling and taking players on 1v1. Now you'll see as we play this through, we're gonna just watch it through to start with. That you can see you prior to getting on the ball to then getting on the ball, and there's a tactical cam view where you can see all the players' positioning and your positioning prior, and then we do get into a real closer angle view where you can see the sort of broadcasting view, if you like, what goes on the telly, and you can see it a little bit closer up to see your skills on show. So we're just going to watch that through so everybody can have a little look at it, and then we're going to start to unpick your insights, really. So I suppose the first question from me, Chloe, just as we're watching this, is when your player of your team is in possession of the ball, wherever they are on the pitch, and when you're awaiting the pass from them to come, when do you start to make the decision that you're actually going to dribble and not play early and play first time?
I think it's the fullback that I'm up against. So if you see in this one, if you let it run on a little bit. So when Sam does get the ball, the gap between the fullback and the centre half closes up really quick. So like I need to stay wide, like to receive it in there, and R9 is filling that gap, so staying wide, and so that when I do receive it, the fullback has to come out to me, which then gives me time to slow the ball down and wait for her to get out. So when she does slow down, that's when I can speed it up.
Yeah, you can tell here, but obviously as you've received it there, managed to sort of square her up and been able to manipulate that and use her momentum of the press really to slow her back down to start again.
Yeah.
And I know that kind of moving forward onto that, you can see that if we just go back through it again, you can see that you make some slight movement to the hips. So you can see there that you were open to receive off Sam. She continues. You shut your hips back off and start travelling forward. You then start to open your hips back up again to receive. What are you thinking when you're opening your hips up to receive and then closing them back off? What are you noticing and seeing that's giving you that option to do that?
I think not being like making Sam's decision for her sometimes, that like, does she need me? No. So I go, and then I'm like, right, she needs me now. Open my hips back up, and then when I do get it, just face the player up and shift it one way because she starts thinking, right, she's going on her right foot, and then come back inside because the turn of her hips is obviously it's easier for me to get momentum going forward than her on the turn. But just getting her to move a little bit beforehand obviously helps that. But when she is coming out, just slow it down, because if I run at her at full pace, we just it don't help like my momentum, because her momentum's all coming forward. So just slowing it down and then taking my touch on to then try and shift her either way.
Yeah, and you can see here just by having a look at your touch, so it's quite a tight touch, you'd say, and probably a lot of people would say to their wide players, take a large touch, take it off your back foot, push it into the space behind. What are you thinking here when you just take that small touch? What are you trying to do to the defender?
I think the way we do play, we always have most of the time a runner in the space behind the fullback. So if I open my hips up, I can play that, but I can also go inside. That's why I've opened my hips up quite a lot, and the tight touch, because she's quite away from me still, so it gives me time to make a decision really, to see what she can do. If I take a heavier touch, it's just my momentum's then going forward. Whereas if I do take that touch quite close to me, it allows me to see what she's doing and make a decision rather than taking a quick heavy touch in front of me. That sort of makes my decision already, whereas I can wait and then make my decision rather than rushing just because my touch would take it past her. And it allows me to see the whole picture once I do receive the ball.
Yeah, perfect. And I think just by looking at this clip here, you can see obviously the picture and where the players are placed. But what's your thoughts this time as to why you go inside? Because I know obviously you can go inside or outside the space either side. So what's your thoughts there of going inside? What's showing you that you can go inside?
Where our 9 is, because the gap between the two is quite big, the centre half and the fullback. I didn't take my toucher in front of me and down the side because I think it was only early on in the game, so I'm just getting a feel for what the fullback is about really, and I know that I can beat her down the outside. I'm just getting a test of if I do beat her a few times central, then it allows me to get wide. So I think my 9's there that I can link up with, but it ends up being the opposite midfielder that I do link up with. But knowing that the 9 is there, it allows me to go inside and be able to have a link player in there.
Yeah, I think you can see here from your decision as well that it's clear by where the fullback is kind of showing you and approaching you in the way that she is trying to approach you. She's trying to sort of show you down the outside. And I think that, you're quite keen on not going where they want you to go. So you can see she's trying to show you outside. And just as she starts to then, you manipulate the ball just so she gets crossed feet. Yeah. And just as she gets crossed feet, you take your touch there. Is that what you look for? Are you trying to off-balance the defender by doing those small touches?
Yeah, most of the time it's not really my feet. It's more like my shoulders that just try and get them off balance, and then I go. Because obviously you can see here the time that it would take her to turn is my momentum's all going forward. So then that gap opens up again between the centre half and the fullback. The gap that I spoke about before, the gap between them two was huge. So how can we exploit that? And that's when that runner does do that. So I can already see the gap starting to open up between them now.
Yeah, and you can see here as well that all the way through the clip, you can kind of keep a really neutral body position. You don't overcommit either way. And your head is up majority of the time for you to constantly see. And I think all coaches would agree that, some players that are great manoeuvres of the ball and really confident of the ball probably often enough look at the ball and don't necessarily look at the pitch. So when did that become something that you could do? When did you realise, actually, I don't need to look at the ball to be able to do this, and I could probably manipulate it with me looking and my head up?
I think when I was coming through Centre of Excellence and I was at Middlesex and Arsenal, just playing with your head up and seeing the pictures was what I got coached. Just you don't need to always have your head down because what can you see down there? It's grass. That's what I was probably getting told. It's just grass down there. So yeah, it's just being able to, if your head's up, being able to see the pictures.
Yeah, and I think it's clear there. You can see the run of your teammate by doing that, and you can just see everything that's going on. And it's clear throughout all the clips that you manage to keep your head up majority of the time. Is there any times where the defender manages to get your head down? Is it where they get really close quite quickly and you've not managed to view the ball, or are you quite confident in your own ability that you can manipulate the ball without having a look?
Sometimes not even looking at my feet, sometimes looking at theirs to see when they are off balance. So that might be why my head is down, just to see that them off balance maybe, to then make my decision, make my move. But yeah, I feel like I'm pretty confident with with my feet, just seeing when they are off balance, then I can make my move.
Yeah, perfect. And we're going to go on to the next video now. The next video again is quite similar, and we'll watch it through from the tactical view. But it's similar in terms of you facing up to dribble, facing up to beat them. It comes from a bit of a transition and turnover. But this time you decide to do something different. You decide to go around the outside, and this is where your unpredictability comes in, really, of being able to do both. So again, just peeling away from the fullback, getting it to commit, shoulders open and deliver. And you can see this time you deliver back post as far as you can, just because of the runs and the players that you can see. So just having a look through this one here, you can see that Lucy passes the ball and it's probably a little bit beyond where you wanted, and you kind of adjust quite well, and you manage to get a bit of a heavier touch this time to bring you back into that real square open shape. And again, is that something that you do often? Are you trying to bring that ball back to square up the play so you've got two options constantly?
Yeah, to be able to play Lucy or to be able to go myself. And I think the backpedaling, when I do that, it just gives me a little bit more time when I do get the ball. So I'm pulling myself away from that defender a little bit. I could stay in there and it might be tight when I receive it, but pulling away then gives me the opportunity to then square up, to then I think in this picture, to go down the side of her, just being able to square her up. But I think you can see in this, she's not as balanced, not really too balanced. So that's when I do take the touch past her.
Yeah,
because her feet are like, do I go the ball? And then that's when I do take the touch.
Yeah, and I think again there you kind of took the shift inside, managed to get a feet quite square again, that you can just shift that on the outside and get around the outside. So what's your thoughts in terms of why you went down the outside this time? Because obviously that's quite different to the first clip. Why are you thinking, I need to go down the outside here and not the inside?
If you look at where Lucy is in their holding midfielder, if I go inside, there's not much space in there unless I play Lucy and try get it again. But if you see how high we are, it's unlikely that's gonna be the case. So I think if I take my touch beyond her, it just isolates me and her in a 1v1 rather than would be a 3v2 if I come back in the pitch, because I am also quite high up as well, high up the pitch. But then once I do take my touch past that, I do pick my head up now, and then I do make the cross. So just picking my head up to see if we do have the bodies in the box. And we've got four numbers in there, so I think it was a good decision to cross. But as I'm dribbling, I did pick my head up and then make my cross rather than just fling it in there once I beat her. So now and then go.
Yeah, and how often do you practice that, Chloe? Just going sort of inside, outside, depending on what the opposition are presenting and showing you. Do you practice that often in training, and the options are both?
Yeah, and after sessions as well. I'm working with the 9 to just get on the end of them as well, so the end product. But yeah, after sessions and in like the likes of small sided as well.
Nice. And I think we're just going to go on to the next video clip now when this one's finished. And the next ones now are more not your 1v1, your typical 1v1 ability, but they're now going to two different things. One being central and receiving quite central, which is very different for you. I think most people would say you're quite a wide player, and Lucy probably takes more of a central role, especially at club at the minute. And the next one then after that is just looking at a bit of a different touch again. So I think this one in particular, it just shows as the ball's being transferred across the pitch, you can see here, you're trying to provide some width because, you know, that Lucy's a little bit deeper, you're providing the width, and that's probably your role at the time at Man City to do that. And then you've got a little bit of a change of decision, come inside and then manage to link up really well with Ellen. So as this ball's transferring across here, we can see that you're trying to make the pitch big and making it wide. Then Steph does that. So what's your thoughts when she starts to travel?
I actually think I come inside a little bit too early. Because if you let it play a little bit, when Steph takes that other touch, the second touch, I'm already in there, and then just staying on the move when I am in there, not being flat and standing still, because I wouldn't be able to make that turn and pass if I was just flat. So just being able to stay on the move, because I came in now, whereas I should have been coming in now, so that I received the ball on the move. But then I just check off that fullback, and then I know that Ellen's going to be on the pinning off the back shoulder. So just scanning in that, because I knew I was in too early. But then changing my body shape so that the defender, because I've opened up a little bit, defender thinks I'm going to go back wide to then check back in. So just changing my body shape to, because I was in there too early, so I may have misjudged the timing, but just thinking on the move, and being able to change what happens in the moment, because I may have made it too early, but if I just do that and then stand in there, that's when that could have closed up a little bit more.
Yeah, and I think you can see there that you've got quite a few Arsenal players in and around the vicinity as well that you've affected just by coming in there. And like you said, you've corrected that by continuing the movement, changing the movement, and still been able to shrug off that player really who's putting on a little bit of a press. So as Steph steps in here, you can see that she continues, but on a sort of diagonal, she takes a touch diagonally, which then changes the shape really of your player that's attached to you and pressing you, and sort of your body shapes made her think it's going wide. Steph sort of took her touch to make her feel like it's going wide, and then you can see that. And what are you seeing now that you've made a move, you've made a pull out of that? What are you now thinking?
When I get on it, face forward, spin my hips, and that's when I open up, spin my hips, and Ellen's in a great position on the shoulder of the fullback. So if I receive flat, I'd get doubled up on. But being able to open my hips with the turn, and then it was a bit of a stretch, but to be able to play around the corner to Ellen is based off my first touch and opening my whole body out to recognise that.
And is that something you think you've took from playing in a wide position, that receiving off the back foot and being able to open your hips up that quickly? Is that something you've got from playing in a wide area?
Yeah, it's something I probably only added to my game more so this season. It was something that we really hammered down in pre-season, the opening up from the wingers, because it does make them shift a little bit. Then it opens up two passes rather than receiving flat. So we worked to that a lot in pre-season. So to be able to see that, it just shows that work in pre-season has helped massively.
Yeah, and do you think that obviously coming through, you've been quite technically gifted from the experiences that you've had in the cages and growing up, but is that something that you continue to work on? Is that real technical execution of the receiving and being able to play off both feet quite quickly? You can see there that the period of time between your first touch and your second, which is a key pass, is very quick. Is technical work something that you do still quite often?
Yeah, definitely a lot of technical drills, and I think it's all about repetition and being able to get that opening your hips, because I feel like if it's not drilled into you, then it's easy to come off the hymn sheet. But it's something definitely that we worked on in pre-season. Like I remember doing a lot of sessions on that, and of course it took time to get used to, but it's something that I've tried to add into my game since coming to City. But the repetition is massive, and like something that like you can do so much of, and like it's not a tiring exercise, but it's something that your brain just gets used to, and just training the brain really rather than it's not too much hard work, but it's just getting your body used to that movement.
Mm-hmm. Is that something that the PPC support with, and you get support from other departments in the club to support you with that opening of the hips and things like? Do they support that type of stuff?
Yeah, I think so. There's a lot of that, and it just helps when your head gets used to it. That's when it becomes a lot more natural. So it's definitely something that we could do more of. But just seeing how much we've done in pre-season to then add it into your game, it's huge. And that repetition, if you was to do that in all areas, how much impact it could have.
Yeah, and I think obviously moving across from Everton into Man City, you'll have some key different partnerships. You've got partnerships with Lucy, who's obviously very attacking minded like yourself, and trying to balance the two of you off together, I bet is difficult, trying to work off what each other are doing. And obviously in this clip here, you've got Steph, and knowing Steph's ability to be able to step in. So you can see as she's stepping in here, she just takes a shift, one, just to off balance the player that's with you and pressing, but also just moves this player who was screening the pass originally out of the way. So
Yeah.
how much is it linked on sort of partnerships with players in your team? Do you have to do a lot on partnerships, working, getting to know each other a little bit and how you do things? Is that really different to when you were at Everton? Are the players different? Are the capabilities different?
Of course, playing with the likes of Lucy and Steph, world class players, is great, and like being able to work with them and have an understanding of what they need from me is huge. But yeah, probably at the start of the season, I probably wasn't using Lucy half as much as I do now, whereas now I am opening up and playing her a lot more with that run behind the fullback. But yeah, that's probably because I wasn't opening up my hips as much. But yeah, it's just building up the relationships of what they do, the timing of when Steph is stepping out, my timing to go into the pocket, and then Lucy going on, or am I staying out, and so the midfielders picking up that pocket. So yeah, I think it's all about relationships and timing. Like, does this centre half take another touch? Is like just what that player needs from you, because if you are in late, then there's no pass in there. But if you are in early, they can just close it up. So just the timing of it and just being there, and if you are in early, then being on the move still. But I think it's just about relationships and like just realizing when they do need you and when they are stepping up, what is my cue to then go in.
Yeah, perfect. And I think we're gonna see a similar clip here in terms of those relationships and you being able to work off those relationships, but also from a little bit of a different view, really. So this one is the tactical view as we go through, and it's a night game, so it's a little bit darker than the others, but we can see you just here highlighted, and you can see here the ball is looking like, and the player in possession is looking like it's going to go out onto the left-hand side. And then what are you thinking there as then the ball then shifts? So now it's come back round and it's a possibility it's coming back out to your side. Suppose, what are you thinking when it could go to the left? What's your role if it goes the opposite side? And then what are you thinking as the ball comes back?
Yeah, if it goes to the opposite side, trying to join in the attack. But then when it does come out to Rose here, it was just get high on does she need my feet first and foremost? Like, does she need me? Then get as high as I can on the deepest player. So I think I changed my run.
Yeah.
So when she receives it, I'm like, does she need my feet? So don't just run away from her. And I'm still giving her the option for feet, because it is under pressure, but then having the ability to spin my hips easy to then going behind, but playing on not my fullback's back shoulder, but on the deepest player.
Yeah, and you can see that where you change your hip movements a number of times, really, just to show feet, then come away, then show feet, then come away. And it constantly gives the fullback that decision of not being able to drop off too early because you actually are showing feet. So she might need to go and press, then you don't. And then, as you can see, then you manage to get off the back of her. So just as, I suppose, going back through that clip, you mentioned that you weren't working off your fullback and the centre back. Are you constantly scanning in this position here, the back line?
Yeah, that's something I've been working in my analysis sessions to be playing off the deepest defender and not just looking at my fullback how deep she is, but looking across the back line and getting more height to stretch it. So I'm like running away, but I'm like, does she need my feet? And then my body shape allows me to do both. And then the touch past her, I think I carry on my momentum because how high they are.
Yeah, and I was just going to ask you that question there, Chloe, around what was your thoughts this time of going beyond? Because the other clips we've seen, you've tried to use the momentum of the press, slow her down, face her up, give yourself multiple options, and this time you've committed to going beyond. So what was your thought process in doing that?
I think, like, can I see it again, please?
Yeah.
Is that possible?
So it'll come back through this one, and it'll come back through on a smaller one.
So I think I'm on her shoulder already. So so she's coming at me from a different angle to what the Arsenal player was coming at me from. So she's tighter to me, and if I do stop it, her momentum could just then come and win it. So I keep the momentum on the ball, take the touch past her, and I'll either get a foul or I will, like, she can't foul me then because I get my body there and my first touch past her. So then the ball into the box. So like I just get my body across, but I know that if I keep the momentum on the ball, then I'm going that way. Whereas she don't know whether I'm gonna stop it, and if I do, that's when her momentum can carry on to then win it. So because she is out of shape really.
Yeah, and you can see there that the momentum is that she was trying to get back out to you and trying to catch up with you, and that's where she's coming back out, but you're then taking your touch in and using that momentum again. So you can see there as you've gone past her, there's going to be then some physical contact because you've took the touch across her, and now as we come into this bit, there becomes a bit of physical contact, doesn't there? So in terms of that, are you taught that? Do you practice that? Do you sort of ride physical contact? How do you practice that?
I think it's not like, it's just about getting used to getting your arm across her, and like the ball is there, but if I get my body across her, like just being able to get my arm, because at the end of the day, like, it's there to be won. So of course, but my touch is going, my momentum is taking me forward, where she's like trying to off balance me to get to the ball, whereas I'm just like get my arm across, and I feel like it's not really too much of a physical contact. It's just getting my arm across, and it's not much of a battle if I'm not getting too close to her. I'm sort of bend my run around her to then just get my arm out rather than running straight to it.
Yeah, and I think we've touched on when you receive and when you're manipulating the ball, you have your head up a lot to assess things and take pictures, and it seems to be something that you constantly do. So as we get to this bit, you take a big touch, and I suppose the big touch in one instance allows you to do what you said and get across the front of the full back. So she's either got to bring you down, it's a foul, or you get across there and you manage to keep the momentum of the ball. But it also allows you some time, doesn't it? What are you thinking and what are you watching for as you've got a big touch here? You can see you're scanning and you're looking. What are you looking for when you do that?
The body's in the box, and their back line. Like, are they deep? Is it a cutback that I'm looking for? So if it's a cutback, I need another touch to take take me to then cut it back, or is it just an early one in behind them because they are all running back to their own goal? But the gap between them and the keeper was quite big. So then that is like a teasing, but looking at the defender, or is that the goalkeeper? So just assessing our numbers in the box, because obviously that's come from a transition. So being aware that we might not have them bodies. So I can see Georgia's in a great position, and Hemper at the back post as well. So just being in them crossing positions, and yeah, just putting it along the floor against them, because all their momentum's going towards their own goal. So it could even come off one of them as well.
Yeah, and I think it is a great assessment really of the players, because that was going to be a question I was going to unpick with you. Was, you know, what was your decision behind crossing early and not taking that extra touch to the byline? Was that Georgia's positioning, and then obviously the gap between the centre halves and the goalkeeper that you'd seen?
Yeah, I think the gap between them and the goalkeeper is like a corridor of like, that's where like you just want the ball to go in as a nine, I guess, and just being able to put it straight in that corridor, because is it the goalkeepers, is it the centre halves to deal with, and that just could come off them, because they are, all their momentum is going towards their goal, which they also, if I slow that down, they're set then. But if we didn't have the bodies in the box that we do have, then that's when I know I need to take another touch so that they are set and we find the cutback then.
Yeah, I think it's called is it the corridor of uncertainty or something that the centre backs call it, that they just don't like it.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just like to see that as a forward, you're just like, yeah, put it straight there for us.
Yeah, perfect. And just to sort of finish that off, really, it's been a great insight into all them clips, and you can see there it's a near miss from Georgia, and I'm sure she won't want to watch that clip again.
Yeah.
But just as we're going on to the final part, really, I know that one obviously was a miss, a near miss, but there's been lots of occasions where you have assisted and even scored your own goals, scoring 7 this season. Variation really of first time finishes at the back post, first time finishes from crosses, to mixing it up and having 2, 3, 4, 5 touches to get into the box and take players on and getting behind. So just to sort of wrap that up, because that's a completely different skill altogether to the stuff we've been seeing. What different skill sets is needed to receive and stay on the ball inside the box or in and around the box compared to when receiving it in a wide area?
I think just assessing what's around you, and the tight touch in around the box, because it is so tight in there, but keeping the ball close to you, and then I think just shifting it, because the defenders don't really want to make a challenge in there. So being able to shift them, but shifting the ball as well, and then having your momentum going while they can't really affect you in that. But something I've definitely been working on is getting in at the back post. So just working with the other wingers like Lauren Hemp, and realising when she is going to cross it, my positioning on that. So I think it's all about timing really, and if you are in there early, staying on the move and not being easy to pick up really.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and a great insight, and I'm sure loads of people have been willing to get this insight for a long time, because I know we have, watching you this season and the end of last season, and the reason why you were picked up by City, it's just been incredible to watch your journey, and you just grow into the WSL, and as we've seen from the stats, just grow into an incredible wide forward. So thanks so much for sharing your insight. It's been great to hear your thoughts and your experiences, and all the best for the games coming up.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. I think that was great. And obviously, as players, you probably don't see that as much and be able to talk about what you see in that moment. So it's great to see. And thank you very much for having me, and really enjoyed it.
Good, and I'm sure there's going to be lots of key nuggets for coaches to pick up on and take away, and like we said, some of that technical information that coaches can start to utilise with a wide forward. So yeah, it's great. Thanks so very much for sharing.
Thank you.
So that's it from us from today. Thanks very much for joining us. Hopefully you'll see there that we've covered hopefully most of those webinar outcomes, in particular the wide player receiving and being able to analyse them clips in detail of the before, during and after. Hopefully the data give you something to think about, and you were able to add the data into some of the receiving clips and add the two together and really start to contextualise what those receiving skills look like for a wide player. And again, want to just say a massive thank you to Chloe for joining us and sharing her experiences. I'm sure you all agree there's a lot of key nuggets in there that we can all take away. So thank you to everyone for joining us, and take care. Thank you.